Picture this. A regime that spent decades chanting "Death to America" is now quietly crawling back toward the negotiating table. A military that once called itself the strongest force in the Middle East is watching its own soldiers slip into Afghanistan, one of the most hostile places on earth, with fake passports and disguises just to escape. And the supreme leader who once bragged that no power on earth could touch Iran, he is gone, killed in a precision strike on his own compound in Tehran. This is not fiction. This is not a hypothetical. This is unfolding in real time inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. Today, we walk through every layer of this extraordinary collapse: the desperate backroom diplomacy, the open mutiny inside the IRGC, the chilling truth about what Iran was really doing inside those nuclear facilities buried under mountains. Stay with us, because this story is larger and more consequential than anything we have covered in a long time. If you are new here, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Stories like this move fast. To understand where we are today, you need to understand how we got here. The catastrophic failure of Iranian diplomacy that made all of this inevitable. For more than a decade, Iran ran the same playbook: drag out nuclear talks, make demands, walk away, come back, stall, enrich more uranium, bury more facilities under mountains. The objective was never a deal. The objective was time. Time to build nuclear capability without ever formally crossing the line that would trigger force. It was a strategy built on the belief that the West would keep talking forever. That belief turned out to be catastrophically wrong. According to multiple U.S. officials, Washington came to the table with one of the most generous offers in the history of this conflict. The core demand was simple: zero uranium enrichment inside Iran. In return, the United States would supply Iran with enriched uranium, free of charge, for a full 10 years. That would let Tehran run a civilian nuclear program without ever possessing the capability to build a bomb. By any serious measure, it was a remarkable offer. All Iran had to do was say yes. They refused. But it was not just the refusal that told the Americans everything. It was what happened inside the room. According to accounts from the U.S. side, Iranian Foreign Minister Araki began shouting at U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff during the talks. Witkoff, accompanied by Jared Kushner and other senior American officials, reached a breaking point and said directly, "If you prefer, I can just leave." And he meant it. That moment confirmed what Washington had long suspected. Iran was not negotiating. Iran was stalling again. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth made it clear in a statement just before the operation began. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Read that again. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. That single line explains the strategic logic that led to what came next. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched large-scale coordinated strikes against Iran. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Dan Kane left no room for ambiguity. On February 28, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. He described how the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct combat operations. The product of months, in some cases years, of deliberate planning against this exact target set. This was not improvised. This was a carefully built machine waiting for the right moment to be switched on. The results were, by any historical standard, staggering. According to Trump himself, the intelligence picture leading into the strikes was unlike anything previously seen in modern warfare. 49 leaders. They're talking about using people now that nobody ever heard of. They're studying people to be the leader that even they don't know who they are. Iran's regime is now so hollowed out that the succession plan itself is being drawn from names not even Iranian intelligence can place. The plan has been effectively destroyed. According to Iran International, more than 52 senior Iranian officials and commanders have been confirmed killed since the war began. The list reads like a who's who of the Islamic Republic. The IRGC's Commander-in-Chief, Major General Mohammad Pakpour, the head of IRGC Intelligence, Major General Majid Kademi, the head of the IRGC Navy, senior besieged commanders, intelligence officials, missile program directors. Euronews reports 3 more figures killed on March 20th alone. The IRGC's spokesperson, the besieged deputy for intelligence, and a senior commander in the Ministry of Intelligence. And then, at the very top of that list, the name that changed everything. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the man who held ultimate control over Iran's military, political, and strategic decisions for more than 3 decades. Killed in a precision strike on his compound in Tehran at the opening of the war. Iran Newswire called it the single most consequential leadership loss in the Islamic Republic's history. Trump addressed it directly, and the bluntness is remarkable, even by Trump's standards. "I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first." A reference to Iran's assassination plots against Trump during the 2024 campaign. The personal dimension of this conflict is very real. But eliminating commanders is only part of the story. The psychological collapse may be just as significant. Reports describe a serious breakdown in the chain of command, not from outside pressure alone, but from active mutiny within. According to a reliable intelligence source, a group of key IRGC field commanders are threatening to go public and announce their defection if the Leadership Council fails to deliver a political solution. These are not ordinary soldiers. These are field commanders, the supposed backbone of the regime, and they are threatening to walk. Iran's own foreign minister inadvertently confirmed the scale of the losses on live television. Asked how much damage the strikes had done, he stumbled through an answer, trying to downplay casualties while accidentally revealing their severity. He admitted that 40 senior commanders were killed in the first minutes of the strike. Then he tried to argue nothing had changed, that replacements were ready, that retaliation was already underway. Nobody believed him. Not even, it seems, the IRGC members watching at home. Because here is the truly shocking part. Ordinary IRGC members are physically fleeing the country. Videos from Iran's border regions show IRGC soldiers crossing into Afghanistan, one of the most dangerous countries on earth, using disguises and fake passports. These are men who chose to risk their lives in a failed state rather than continue fighting for the Islamic Republic. If you want one image that captures the morale of Iran's military right now, it is that image. And now we arrive at the most remarkable diplomatic development of this crisis. The regime is begging for a deal. The Wall Street Journal reports Iran's new security chief, Ali Larijani, the man now effectively running what remains of the country, has made a fresh push to resume nuclear talks through mediators in Oman. Trump confirmed talks may happen. Speaking to The Atlantic, he offered his characteristically blunt assessment. "They waited too long. They should have made a deal sooner. They played a little too cute." On the succession crisis, he added, "The attack was so successful that it knocked out most of the candidates. It's not going to be anyone that we were thinking, because they're all dead. Second and third place are dead too." A ceasefire was formally declared in late June 2025, following coordinated Israeli and American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. According to Reuters, Netanyahu confirmed Israel had agreed to Trump's ceasefire proposal after removing Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missile threat. But that ceasefire, fragile from the beginning, has been tested repeatedly. The first major round of talks took place in Islamabad in April 2026, hosted by Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. VP JD Vance led the U.S. delegation. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf led Tehran's. According to Time magazine, the marathon weekend concluded without resolution. Vance stated publicly that Iran had chosen not to accept our terms, adding the U.S. requires a fundamental commitment from Tehran not to develop nuclear weapons. American negotiators also want Iran to dismantle its major enrichment facilities and hand over more than 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That is a complete structural transformation of Iran's nuclear capability. Iran's demands, as reported by Al Jazeera, tell a very different story. Full acceptance of its enrichment program, lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions, end to all UN Security Council resolutions against Iran, withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from regional bases, and compensation for war damages paid through tariffs on ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. That last demand alone is one Washington will simply not accept, and that is the core of the problem. With the ceasefire expiring on April 21st, the question is, what happens next? According to Axios, Pakistani, Egyptian, and Turkish mediators are working around the clock to bridge the remaining gaps before the deadline. All parties, a regional source said, still believe a deal is possible, but Trump is reportedly considering a return to strikes if the U.S. naval blockade fails to force Iran to change course. The blockade, Operation Epic Fury, as the U.S. military has designated it, is itself a negotiating tool, not just a military one. Then there is the Strait of Hormuz problem. Iran has one major card left: control, or at least the threat of disruption, of the strait through which roughly 20% of global oil passes. According to Fortune, while many IRGC commanders are dead, the remaining officers are steering Iran toward a more hardline stance, favoring continued Hormuz leverage over accepting a deal that strips them of that power. Iran expert Saeed Golkar of the University of Tennessee told the Wall Street Journal that Khamenei's death has divided the country's leadership. Because the main arbitrator is gone, the fight between different factions has started. That factional fight is not a diplomatic inconvenience. It is a structural crisis. The IRGC, as Reuters described, has become a state within a state. IRGC commander Ahmad Vahidi has insisted all critical leadership positions must be controlled by the IRGC. The organization is positioning itself as the dominant power in whatever replaces the old regime. That makes it far harder for any single Iranian official to commit to anything, because no single official is fully in charge. Trump's strategy is more nuanced than pure military pressure. Strikes, a naval blockade, ceasefire talks through multiple mediators, and a direct public offer to IRGC members to defect with full immunity. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity or face certain death. That statement is not aimed at the regime. It is aimed at the individuals inside it, telling them the window is closing. There is also a geopolitical dimension beyond Iran itself. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has urged European countries to quickly decide on reimposing sanctions against Iran, warning Tehran is violating the existing agreement. On April 15th, Trinidad and Tobago formally designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. More countries are likely to follow. Before the war, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testified to Congress that the U.S. continued to assess Iran was not yet building a nuclear weapon, though Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium had grown to levels that would allow rapid development if the decision were made. That window of ambiguity is exactly what the February 28th campaign was designed to close for good. So what does all of this add up to? We are watching a regime in the final stages of a collapse it brought entirely on itself. Not because it was weak, not because it lacked resources, because it repeatedly, consistently, and arrogantly chose the wrong strategy at every critical juncture. Iran had years to make a deal. Years of outreach, sanctions relief talks, back-channel communication. Instead, it buried facilities under mountains, built a vast proxy network across the Middle East, and assumed Washington would never cross from pressure to force. They were wrong, and the bill has come due. 49 leaders eliminated in one coordinated operation. More than 52 confirmed senior officials and commanders killed. IRGC soldiers fleeing to Afghanistan. Field commanders threatening open mutiny. A ceasefire teetering on the edge of expiring, with both sides unable to bridge a chasm of demands that reflects fundamentally incompatible visions of Iran's future. The fascinating part is that even now, the regime cannot publicly acknowledge reality. Larijani reaches out through Oman, and then a Twitter account claiming to be him denies any outreach happened. The foreign minister goes on television and spins catastrophic losses as proof of resilience. There is a phrase for this in political science: the performance of strength as a substitute for strength itself. The Islamic Republic perfected that performance over 40 years. Now the audience has stopped believing the show. Trump summed up the entire situation in a single line: they should have done it sooner. They waited too long. That is the eulogy for the strategy Iran chose. One thing is certain: the Islamic Republic that emerges on the other side of this conflict will not be the same entity that entered it. The command structure has been gutted. The supreme leadership is gone. The military's morale is in free fall. The nuclear program, the project that consumed trillions of dollars and decades of effort, lies in ruins under the rubble of those buried facilities. Iran expert Dan Shapiro of the Atlantic Council put it bluntly to the Hill: getting all of those other things, the nuclear program, the missile programs, and the proxies, out of one meeting in Islamabad was never realistic. This will not be resolved in one meeting, or two, or probably even three. The architecture of a new Iran will take months, perhaps years, to negotiate. But the direction of travel is now clear in a way it simply was not before February 28th. The era of Iran as a defiant, expansionist, nuclear threshold state is over. What replaces it is the question that will define the Middle East for the next generation. If you found this video valuable, hit the like button. It genuinely helps us reach more people who want serious coverage of the most consequential events in the world right now. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and never miss a story like this one. What we are watching is the most significant unraveling of a major regional power in decades. Thanks for watching.